Hi everybody, and again thank you to the Red Deer Watershed Alliance for inviting SPOG to come. My name is Tracy McCrimmon. I'm the Executive Director with SPOG. Hydraulic fracturing was brought up with SPOG probably last fall, and it became quite a source of a lot of questions that came into our office and a lot of concerns from the public. So we started to try and address these concerns through what we call our proactive engagement process. So I'm just going to go quickly explain what it is. This one here. Okay, so what it is. So it bridges the distance between regulation and expectation. So nothing that we create through performance measures, beneficial practices, they're not regulation. But it is an expectation that the community has through collaborative efforts with industry of how they're going to operate within our community. So most concerns develop early in the communication process, hidden but big costs to industry in time, dollars, respect, and future relationships. A lot of companies will find, depending on the level of development, some of their biggest hiccups are access to land. And if we can get out ahead of these issues prior to, we can address a lot of them before they fester and become real concerns with access to land. What it is not, so again, as we talk, it's not regulation. It's certainly not a big happy love-in. We're not there just to talk about the easy things. We're there to talk about all the issues, including the hard issues. And nothing that what we do is mandatory. We can't force anybody at the table to come and join us. We can't force industry. We can't force government. We certainly can't force community. When to use the PEP. So the spirit of the proactive engagement is that the community members should be able to be informed about oil field activities that see the impact to them. And basically, from SPOG's standpoint of view, if you can see it, smell it, or hear it, we believe that you're impacted. The three tiers of how we determine what type of engagement we're going to use. So routine business, where no notification is required. Non-routine business, that someone may see, smell, hear, or smell. Identify the residents that may be impacted and contact them with details of the work. We provide notification of all activities from our member companies on our website. And all large activities or programs are reviewed at our community affairs. With a larger project, we ask that industry members make presentations at our community affairs and or provide an open house that we'll assist with, and that we ask that they engage this process. So the process is number one is an overview of what the process is. So we started with the hydraulic fracturing in February 2012. The very first meeting is really not a meeting to answer a lot of questions and provide technical information. We ask industry and government members to come and listen to the community and listen to concerns. From there, we provide a way for people to identify what the biggest issues are to them so we can prioritize what the biggest concerns for the community are. As we identify the concerns, we lump them into stages or into groups, and hopefully through following meetings we provide educational components, which would be technical information provided, regulatory information provided, and in a lot of cases community education provided. From there, step 5 is to sit down with the specific issue as they're segmented off, and collaborate between industry and community to come up with a performance measure or a practice that will go above and beyond what the existing regulation is, but address the concerns of the community. From there, we create the performance measure and receive approval from everybody that's participating in the process. And then the last step is an audit process that we try to do in the following months to make sure that we've captured all the points and what we've put down for performance measures actually working. So I've gone through these ones. I'm going to just, the collaboration one is one I want to touch base on. So once there's an understanding of the concerns, regulations, and technical information to the group, everyone is on a playing field to discuss mitigation measures. The use of consensus to find a substantial agreement. So we don't use a consensus base where one party has the right to veto it, but it is a substantial agreement. We try to go for a win-win as opposed to a compromise or a win-lose agreement. What this does do is it provides avenues for dialogue, which provides avenues for not only brainstorming, listening, discussion, and dialogue, but relationship building. Decision makers, it's very important for us. At a lot of our community affairs, we will get the community affairs representatives or the stakeholder representatives from companies, but when we get at the table with some of these more technical issues, it's really important for us to have the decision makers at the table to make it worthwhile for everybody's time. So going through that process, I just wanted to kind of go through now and explain. We have identified, we went through when we started our in February, and we identified 126 different issues. And so out of those 126 different issues, we lumped them into themes. And out of that, we've created a draft document of performance measures that will hopefully address one or all the issues, with the exception we really didn't get into the Alberta land sale process, which is another whole avenue that SPOG has really not delved into yet. And that was about the only issue that we really didn't try to capture. One of the things that was very surprising for us is when we went through the prioritization, water was identified as the largest priority in just about every case. As we went through each step with the technical presentations and the educational component, it became very, very apparent that water is still a valid concern, but our biggest concern from the public was the consultation. So with that, part of our educational component was we reviewed what other existing regulations and what other practices, and CAP had come out with their best practices for hydraulic fracturing in January 1st, 2012. So when we looked at initially with the first couple components, we started with groundwater and aquifers. So the performance measure we created further commitments under the CAP hydraulic fracturing, fracking fluid additives disclosure, and the RCB's commitment to full disclosure of fracking chemicals by the end of 2012. We brought it to the group and the industry members that were sitting at our table that if there was a request for disclosure of fracking fluid prior to the mandate by the end of 2012, would that be provided? We didn't have one cause for concern with that. So all of our industry members committed to providing whatever requests or satisfying whatever requests for fracking fluid additives prior to this new component coming in. No, I don't want to just scroll down. The next one was water wells. So what we do know is with the existing water well regulation, there is parameters for water well testing with CBM. There really wasn't a lot of parameters or regulations surrounding water testing for conventional or unconventional outside of CBM. CAP had come up with a practice whereby they request that water wells be tested within a 250-meter radius. So we adopted that practice. Again, didn't receive any pushback or concern. The industry did also commit that if there was concerns outside the 250-meter radius, that they would address those concerns on a one-by-one basis. The next component that became that was a big concern certainly was the wellbore communication, well communication, and possible cement integrity. So this discussion led into a lot of discussion regarding the risk assessment plans. Companies, there is not a prescribed component that each company has to adhere to a specific checklist for a risk assessment plan. All companies or all identified members that we are working with each do their own form of a risk assessment. One of the things that we've asked them to do is certainly open up the lines of communication more, make sure that all of their neighboring operators are well aware of what they're doing. They have gone above and beyond as far as some of the practices that we're talking, where companies are communicating to the point that they're asking some of their neighboring operators to temporarily shut in their wells. They are skipping formations where there could be possible communications. So they've openly learned from some of the recent incidences that you have to communicate. Okay, so The other thing is on the wellbore integrity. So SPOG and the industry and the regulator commit to assisting and educating residents on the wellbore construction and cement. The ERCB has the regulator surveillance program, so if there is a concern that comes in from the community regarding cement or wellbore integrity, we will help them through the process of engaging on the regulator surveillance program. Okay, the next grouping that we got to was within the water use. From this dialogue and discussion, we found that there was a lot of really good practices that were already going on as far as sharing and reusing of their fracking source, initial fracking source. So industry will commit to sharing area best practices such as pipelining of water, sharing of frac fluids, and looking for ways to reduce water consumption through recycling opportunities. So we know of companies that during spring flood have done a lot of surface capture of water to reuse that for a fracking source. If they are within a geographic distance that they can reuse their fracking source, they're communicating with each other to recycle and reuse. SPOG and its members will committing to sharing any best practices such as new technologies. So we know that there's quite a bit of activity going on in our area, but there's also quite a bit of activity going on well outside of the SPOG boundary. And if there's technologies that are being created, we ask that you bring them back to within our boundaries to see what can we apply and what can we look at as a performance measure with any new technologies that might not be practiced within the SPOG boundary. The other thing that comes up quite a bit is engaging non-SPOG member companies. So my job at SPOG is to work with the ERCB and identify companies that are not members of SPOG and do not have a practice of open communication and make sure that they're aware of the performance measures and best practices that we've established within our boundaries. So this brought us down to what we found was by far the biggest issue. It was the notification, consultation, and other issues. And well, again, as we know water is a concern, the way that industry communicates, be it through water, be it through what their activities are, the length of their activities, this was the biggest one. So what we do know is with the typical sweet well, the existing regulation is notification for 100 meters. We ask that industry collaborate. If we put consent in there, that consent usually to industry means written consent. We wanted a little bit more. We don't expect them to have to go that far outside the existing regulation to have written consent from landowners that are not the immediate impacted landowners. But we want them to do more than just either a letter left or a package left on their doorstep. So we want them to collaborate, which means we'd like them to have discussions, and we'd like to have them put it in their project description package, communicate appropriate language and terminology so that everybody understands exactly what the literature that they have. Outlining the scope of the licensee's activity. So if the land agent or brokers, a third-party consultant, provide a company contact. So if they have a question or concern that is outside the scope of the individual that is representing that company, they've got somebody to phone. Okay. The next performance measure on that is industry will provide notification to all residents within 1.5. What we did, the reason that we picked 1.5, we had from all extremes, starting at the existing minimum requirement all the way out to landowners had concerns that would like to go out to the whole length of the hydraulic stages. The 1.5 under Directive 60 with the flaring and venting, if there's going to be flaring or incineration of a well, Directive 60 recommends that landowners and residents are contacted within 1.5 kilometers. It is a recommendation with SPOG that for notification, that when you're initially starting your activity that you take that notification out to the 1.5. And again, same thing, if you've got a third-party broker, please provide a company contact. Make sure that you provide it in or explain it in a language and terminology that is understandable. Industry will use a project description package that provides the entire scope of the project. So we make sure that it is explained out properly, that what the drilling phase, what the completions phase, and what the tie-in phase could potentially look like. And we also ask, there's a lot of cumulative effects and cumulative impacts from not just one operator, but possibly 10 operators. So if we have an idea, or if a residence or community has an idea of what all 10 companies' activity levels within that 1.5, it gives them a better idea of what's coming down the pipe within that calendar year. And again, we ask that they put in for both the drilling and the completions, and try to give an estimation of traffic and equipment that's being moved during the drilling and completion portion. Industry will commit to including SPOG in the notification. We get a lot of phone calls in our office. Most of our members provide us an update of what an activity level is, so if somebody phones us with a legal description and having a concern about an oil field operations, we can look it up through our database. If they do not include us in that notification, we cannot provide either company contact to follow up on, and then we're back to chasing it through the RCB. Again, on the notification, SPOG commits to trying to actively engage all non-member companies that are operating with our boundaries, so that if the community has a concern, we can make them aware of what our best practices and our performance measures relating to oil field operations. Industry commits to working with all residents within the consultation notification to address potential concerns with regards to light pollution. So again, it gets back to that 1.5 notification, or that 500 meter notification. If you can address your adjacent landowners at that point in time, a lot of issues with light pollution and well siting can be eliminated and avoided if the discussions happen prior to, as opposed to after the operations have started. And again, the next point also, industry commits to working with residents within the consultation with regards to well site locations. A lot of times, if you do a 365-degree turn, if you're a land agent standing out in the field, you can have a better idea of who you're going to impact with your location if you're going to put it here, as opposed to maybe moving in 150 to 200 feet behind a bluff of trees. Industry commits to following best management practices within SPOG boundary for traffic and road use. Now, traffic and road use, the regulator for that is the municipality, in both cases Clearwater and Mountain View County. We have a copy of Clearwater County's road use policies. Mountain View County is currently overhauling and redrafting theirs, so that is one that is pending on what their results of their traffic best uses. Industry commits to open communication and transparency with regards to development forecasts. So as we talk about, it's the cumulative impacts, that it's not just one company's operations, it could be the potential of 10 companies or 15 companies. And, you know, it's funny, we have one landowner that comes to mind so many times. She is outside the existing notification radius and outside the existing consultation radius. And probably in the last 19 months, she's had 30 wells drilled all around her. This is an individual that's had huge impacts. It's not one company doing it. I think there's 7 companies that are operating in her backyard. And she's completely left in the dark of what's going on, because she's always just outside those notification ranges. So we're asking industry to go back and give us a forecast of what your activity level is going to be within the year, and at least do it through either our proactive engagement process or do it through SPOG, so we can let the community know what kind of activity levels are coming. And so to close on this, you know, SPOG recognizes that it has a very strong, Alberta has a very strong regulatory framework that governs the oil and gas industry in the province, and we're trying to address the concerns from the communities that are impacted by the activities. The spirit and intent of these performance measures do go above and beyond the existing requirements, so nothing in here is regulation, goes above and beyond that. And it's intended to further develop good relationships and good neighbor practices between the oil and gas industry. So again, we are still in draft with this. We're hopefully trying to finalize this here right away. The intent of this document is to help communities understand the activity levels, provide an educational component, but also help industry understand what the community's requests are and help them be good neighbors. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy, very much.